Oh, I wasn't ready. Good morning, everybody. Oh my goodness, do I love that intro? I was kind of playing with the intro, trying to get it looking neat and nice, crispy. Although I must say that we need to talk about the this whole papers please thing. Papers please, papers please. Let me show you this real quick. Anyone got? You got to make sure you got your cuckoo virus papers, because that is coming. That well, actually not coming. It's here. It came from the Department of Defense. Where is my thing at? Oh, look at that. Uh-oh. Is that Beaufort? Does he want to come around? Come around.
Can I see your papers?
I don't think I have them on me.
In that case, we'll have to ask you to come along.
Wait, it's possible that yes. Here we are.
These papers expired 3 weeks ago. You'll have to come along.
Halt!
That's one of my favorite movies. I like that. This has to do with the Cuckoo 19 papers. Is that Beaufort? You look black, man.
Huh?
I said you look kind of black today, brother. Did you brush?
That's because
Oh,
what I usually rock, I can usually put like a little cover over my camera when I'm not using it.
oh, you know what? Yeah, very smart. Isn't that what who does that? Zuckerberg.
Does he?
Zuckerberg. Yeah, they called him covering his camera.
There's a little stick-on gadgets you can put on your phone that has a little slider that can cover the camera on your phone. And I had one on my old phone.
Okay.
They're not very expensive. They're just a little adhesive, and it's like a little slider thing.
Little slider thing. Yeah, that's smart. That's like the privileged way to do it. Mine is tape and a penny. It actually works. It's just tape around a penny, and it's all gone. Look at that. No, you can't see me. Now you can see me.
Exactly. Yeah.
It only cost a penny. Or a penny and a few. You know what, man? I wanted to talk about Corona. What is this? This is the Department of Defense just released the Corona ID, right? Your card. So everybody who gets vaccinated will get their card in the mail. Have you seen? Oh. No, I guess they got to get it filled out.
I see a business opportunity here.
Oh yeah, what do you think?
How are you at making IDs?
Oh, yeah. Hang on. How hard are these to make? I got to get.
But these aren't, because think about it. If you're going to be using these, you're not going to be using these like person to government agency. You're going to be using these to some shopping mall, to some bar and restaurant.
Yeah. See, and that's the problem I have with this is the one that's at the bottom in the center. Mm-hmm. It's wallet sized, right? So if you look at that, that's designed to carry in your wallet, and that's what they say the Department of two problems I have with this. One, it came from the Department of Defense. That makes no damn sense to me. And two, that it's wallet size, and they say that after you get your shot, you have to keep it with you everywhere you go.
Right. So I don't know. In some ways, this might be a good thing. Roundabout, meaning I don't want to go to the mall anyway.
I was sitting here for a second. I was trying to figure out. I was like, all right, how's he going to spend it? I'm open to many ideas.
Right. But there's something, and this the reason why I wanted to come on real quick was a little bit of a tangent. Something a little bit more tangential. I just invented that word. It's close to something that does exist. From yesterday, and talking about how, like, I'm starting to think that a lot of these conspiracies are just as contrived as the pandemic.
Right.
Because they both equally distract. And I think people need to come to understand there's not this truth to be had in much of their information. Right. Now the best lies have some truth to them to be effective. Okay. And that's where you're going to have to spend more time kind of, it's almost like you have to kind of analyze data in such a way to kind of understand what's not true. And that's all you might know is going, I don't know what the ultimate truth is, but I know that that's bullshit.
Yes. Jonathan, I'm going to be Jonathan for a second because I kind of have his beard a little bit, if I can be Jonathan. He said,
I don't think if we combined our beards, we have his beard.
Hey, listen, I think if the two of us put all of our hairs together where we, and we maybe got to go to some other sources though.
Tag team. Bo and Gerard versus Johann Klaus in a Royal Rumble beard match.
Yeah, but you know what, John, and he's here too. Jonathan's kind of got that face like he's got that back hair though. We might be able to get him with some leg hair or something. I got the feeling John's got a few more hairs than what we do. But no, so I'm gonna be Jonathan for a second because unless he wants to come on and correct me. But there was something very smart that he was reading, and he used his intelligence to do something smart with it to figure something out where it's about eliminating what isn't true. Like when you live in times when you don't know what's true, which is pretty much all the damn time, all we can do is eliminate what isn't true.
So to be honest with you, that's the beginning of my discourse on the phone with Jonathan back at the beginning of COVID. And kind of going with everyone clinging to the 5G or whatever, what might, and it's part of that desire I was trying to talk about. We need to cling to something that we know. And if it's not readily available, we'll make it up. That's how bad we need something to know something.
Oh yeah.
Oh, you have to. The beanies were at the beginning of the show. They were at the door.
You had to go back out, Ty.
Yeah.
Ty came in the back door. Ty, you got to come through the front door.
Talk to the bouncer. But I mean, that's part of human nature. We have an addiction to security. We have addiction to something rigid, even if that system of rigidity is probably not in our best interest. We'll still want it, and it's preferable to us because we're familiar with it and we know it. And anything that's beyond that familiarity. So that was something that we understood, and us getting to know each other kind of outside of Facebook, is having these conversations going, this is going to take minds of people that have the self-honesty enough to admit what they don't know. Because that's the first step in learning.
I want to add something to that with a little twist, shake a little snot or something on it. So there's this thing where we have to label things, like, you know, like there's the human mind must simple things down and dumb them down. And I think it's related to what you're saying in terms of, if we don't have the answer, we invent the answer. It's like we don't have a name for something, we simplify it and we label it. Without getting too geeky, right? There's genotyping, phenotyping, and there's one other. Genotyping is based on genes, phenotyping is based on the physical characterizations, and chenotyping is based on the chemistry. And this has to do with plants and cannabis and stuff like that. Don't worry about that portion. But we have to label things. And none of those labels are appropriate, but it's easier for the monkey mind to have a name and label and a box to put things in to make them simple in a world where everything is so infinitely complex, we can't grasp it. So I think that we're certainly where we get in trouble is if we can't be at peace with things not having labels, be at peace with things that we don't know, having that, meditation like stillness of mind in living where we don't know and we're okay not knowing. I'm not going to say that I'm there, but I think I'm heading there where I'm okay with the things that I don't know. I don't.
And that's part of. There's a meditative moment, and it's not. I mean, it's a spiritual component, but we've talked about it from the standpoint that it's not like woo woo. From a standpoint like, first and foremost, you need to be able to face your own ability to lie to yourself. And we all have that. We all have that innately, and we're forced to kind of do it just to survive in the system. Even if it's meaning, it's to me, that's the ultimate level of fascism, is taking upon belief systems and plagiarizing them as if they were rendered through your own meditative experience with your intimate relationship with existence itself. Those are two different things. And a lot of times we cling into, when I go home to Houston and have arguments with, I grew up Reagan Republican as an example. And so I have, and it wasn't like, it was actually when I was at Seattle Central, which was across the street from Chad's. I spent many a year there because paying rent in Seattle and going to school there and trying to get through my engineering prereqs like statics, the stuff. When you're taking physics, chemistry, computer science and calculus, you have to kind of pick and choose. You're like, okay, of my 3 classes, 2 of them are going to be my calculus base, and my third one's going to be oil painting. It's just so I can get my full, right? But
electives, right?
Right, and so I know that, but I was an oil painter, so it helped. It gave me the space to work. But I remember, like, I'm going off-roading here a little bit. I'll get back to my point, but I remember listening to my professor, and this was, even though it was Seattle, this was probably the most conservative, economically conservative individuals I had ever met. Not politically conservative, not party conservative. I think you can have a political and economic and socioeconomic conservatism, and then there's party affiliation, which is sometimes different. And I grew up with the whole, capitalism is free market, and Republicans are trickle down, and that's part of the free market, and blah, blah, blah. And that was the beginning. And this was probably late 90s. This was a few years before 9/11, and this is not a professor you wanted to go to with opposing opinions and try to debate this person. If you were going to have this, it was more of an observational. Let's have a conversation. You're gonna have your ass handed to you if you went into it with the debate mindset. From a win-lose debate mindset, anyway. And I remember approaching him one time, and I was like, I have an observation I want to share. And he's like, what is it? I was like, there's this party line. Oh shit, that's one of my other browsers popped up. And I was like, no, it was there's a doctor in Oregon lost his license for not wearing masks, and that was from yesterday. Anyway, I was basically the observation I made was like, this is the party line. This is what we've been told for 30 years, 25 years since Nixon. But this is what they do, and they're not aligned. They directly oppose. And he just kind of looked at me and smiled and goes, "You're not wrong." And that was the beginning of me realizing to not listen to what they say and watch what they do.
Right.
So when I have these conversations, when I go back home or anybody else, and especially, immediate family members, they tend to just spout off things, and then they're like, and I'm like, you were told to believe that. That's not even your opinion.
Right.
That's not even your belief. And then the minute you start kind of pointing that out to them, they get really, really upset because they think if they say it louder and stand up on a chair, and that all of a sudden they can make it theirs, right? And that's that sociopathic temper tantrum that we're talking about. So I know you and I, for example, butt heads sometimes on the term, especially when it causes like the data that we're seeing as far as overall deaths, for example, in US. And the point I try to make is, well, I have access to a certain data set. And if I do a hypothesis test for this year, for the data set, and I do a hypothesis against that same overall numbers from 2013 to 2019, that you can't reject the null hypothesis, because what we're testing for is to see if basically this year's data set is statistically part of this one. There's some kind of anomaly. The problem, though, is, again, it goes back to proving what we don't know. Okay, I can show that this year's numbers have virtually statistically no correlation to our historical data in the last 4 or 5 years. But I don't control that data. That's my blind spot. I'm relying on some entity out there to collect, manage, and publish this data.
Yes. I'm going with you on that.
And so when people got threatened by some of the analysis, I'm a cost estimator, so this is what I do in my day-to-day. And I'm coming from a little bit more of like, I started off in like part design, especially for composites, and making tooling for reinforced plastics, injection molds, and layup mandrels for composites. So, and then doing structural composites gets a lot more complex because you have multi-tooled surfaces. It's just not like a car hood where the visible side is the tooled surface and the bottom side is all rough. We have multiple tooled surfaces going on, and it's almost like in composites, it's almost like three-dimensional textiles. Because at the end of the day, you have to prove to the FAA that structure is molecularly homogeneous, just like it would be if it was steel. That's almost impossible, right? Because we have these splices that are being manually butted up and they have to overlap. There's a lot of tedious complexity that happens. But I started off in data analysis from like GD&T and from quality assurance, and looking at Six Sigma analysis of kind of like if we're building guitar picks, right?
Yeah.
How are we going to, when can we tell if our manufacturing process is on the step statistically? So, that's basically, usually it's like, I always joke, is like when people look at the mathematics and look at everything going on, they don't want to get involved. But at the very least, you can prove what is not real. Yes. That doesn't mean that you have the power, and that's a huge step to empowerment. And it's worthwhile. And at the very least, you can actually start to go, why don't we have control of this data? How do we get control of it?
Right.
One of the biggest issues when it comes to this topic that I realized in my research, in a data set from 2017, less than half of the world's population on their death metrics end up in a database anywhere.
Okay. Well, yeah. And so let me jump in here. So this is kind of how I view it. So I view this the same way they talk about the PCR test, right? Like, you know, if you use the PCR test to diagnose something, you're violating the purpose of the test, right? Like the test it helps with indicating something if you keep the renditions under 16, right? But you cannot, and this is what the inventor is famous for saying, you cannot use it to diagnose an illness. It doesn't work that way. You're not going to diagnose an infection with a period, end of story. So, but you can use it to say, well, this person lost their life and they have so many parts per million of this fragment, blah, 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 blah. So this could have had something to do with their death. There are better ways to do that through autopsy. So I'm going to relate that to this. So when I wake up in the morning, ever since March, I have not seen anything out my window that would indicate that anything is different than this year from last year, the previous year, except for the fact that people aren't outside and eventually they were walking around in face diapers. So when I look at those statistics towards the end of the year, I'm not looking to prove whether or not we're in a pandemic. I'm looking to see, is there any other correlating information that correlates with what I see, what I've experienced, who I know in the medical field, to say that something happened this year. It wasn't a earth-shattering, destructive, you know, millions of people dying type pandemic. Like, it's something that is concerning above cancer, leukemia, autism, all the other profitable pandemics, or is it something that's interesting? So when I look at those statistics, knowing that I don't even know that there's 7 billion people on the planet, I'm not even sure if the planet is round or flat or trapezoid, right? Because the information, we don't control the source of any of this information, not just statistics, but from a NASA perspective, what's in Antarctica, what do we really even know is true of politics or anything else? And so I think where I go with it in eliminating what isn't true, my body and my experience and what I've seen, what I've known, who I've talked to have said that there isn't anything out there that I need to be worried about. And now all this other correlating data is proving that there isn't anything out there that I need to be worried about. And that's what, and so that's what I do with that statistic. And looking at 2019 to 2020, there isn't anything on the television that's telling me anything true that I need to be concerned with. And that the whole response to this thing was completely wrong, right? The whole response, the idea that protecting the vulnerable is preventing the young and the strong from getting herd immunity is ridiculous. It's counterproductive, right? If you want to protect the vulnerable, you protect the vulnerable. And government has plenty of money to do that. They have plenty of ability to do that. They just don't want to do that because that's not really their plan. Right? Not with big pharma, not oligarchy. You want the young and the healthy, those like me, who have zero concerns for what's out there. And if something out there kills me, I don't think that I really even care. I'm going to live my life. I'm going to live my life and enjoy it. If I die skiing, I die skiing. If I die waterboarding, surfing, you know, running from bears in the mountain, you know, building off brick, then, you know, like that's how, you know, I choose to live my life, climbing Mount Rushmore or something, hanging down from Lincoln's nose. It's what they should have done. But anyway, I guess we kind of went way off topic. I'll snake it back to the whole point of I'm living my own reality. And I think everybody's living their own reality. And we're sharing information from the realities we live. And in my processing, you know, yesterday's, you know, let's get on, let's debate.
Right.
I have to accept that someone else knows something is true and they don't control the data source. And in order for me to make an argument, it means that I have to trust my data sources too to change someone else's reality. And I don't trust any of my data sources.
Well, we all it's and I think it was touched upon. I missed some of the meat of yesterday's because I had to go. I caught I think the end of the first chapter of the reading, and then there was a lot of
Oh, it's
discussion.
off
Right?
the hook. You got Jonathan and Christine really took it there, and Susan was great too, and I kind of hung in there. It blew me away, brother. It
was great.
Yeah, it was. It was fantastic.
But with the Paul Bradley with the debate topic, I did catch the end of that.
Okay.
And there's a difference. I mean, I'd like to say that I've been saying this for a while. In order to have an argument with somebody, both parties have to be honest. And if they're not honest, it's abuse. It's gaslighting. It's just basically a manipulation attempt. Because one of those individuals is not really interested in sharing their blind spots, admitting their blind spots, and learning something. They want to basically replace your belief system with theirs.
Right. It's not a discussion.
And that's not a debate.
Right. That's not a discussion. That's not a debate. That is something else. What is that called?
Manipulation.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And here's my point to that. If you really believe in something, if I really believe in something and I want to talk about it, I'm passionate about it, is one thing. But if I need you to believe it in order to make me feel good about it, do I really believe it?
Yes. I appreciate you saying that, because that is what that expresses my feeling about debating. And so when you take that and you add that to the fact that I don't believe anything on television, and I don't believe most things that I even think I believe I know. But well, hang on.
Back it up.
There's so much to it. This is why I love doing this stuff. So like when you engage in these things, the first step is you have to be able to go into the conversation in an honest fashion that you want to discover the truth. Right? And in order to discover the truth, both parties or all parties have to be able to say, here are the facts, and here is what I believe. And human beings suck at being able to say this is a fact and this is a belief. And if you can't do that, then everything is apples and oranges in terms of discussion. And so the problem I have with debating is that I don't trust any of the facts in this world. Like we literally live in a time where science is banned, mathematics is banned, health is banned, all this information, technology is banned. I mean, legally, you can look up the laws where they actually ban the technology from the public sector for the sake of the War Department. And so that being the case, to me, it's all an ignorant project in debating what none of us know to be true. It's just what's allowed in the public domain. So I feel like it's a waste of time. I guess that's what it is. I feel like, and this is why I get along with you, because you say things I'm like, I don't believe that, but I don't really care. and the same way around. But when you meet someone that has to be right, then it's an issue.
Where I think things are constructive is if you have a conversation, and then some of the times, some of the things we're talking about are unknowable.
Everything is unknowable.
Right. And so that's a quantum mechanics issue. That's actually quantum mechanics in our experience. And the funny thing is, if we have to hold on, it's like the uncertainty principle. For those that don't know, the uncertainty principle fundamentally is in looking at the particle model. And if you're looking at, say, an electron going around an atom, which it doesn't orbit, it comes into existence, interferes with itself, pops into existence somewhere else. It's a shell, a probability shell. There's no planetary or orbital. They teach that to simplify the model.
Right. Okay. Same thing. Yes.
Right.
Simplification.
Right. But so for the uncertainty principle, basically knowing where that electron happens to be in that shell blinds them from their ability to know where it's going to where it's going, where its trajectory, quote unquote, is. And the more they know about the trajectory, the less they know about where that electron is. They could do one or the other, and that's the issue. The minute we start to have to cling on to something that we have convinced ourselves is knowable, ultimately factual truth, we're blinding ourselves in a very similar way.
Yes. Can I explain that a different way?
Yes, sir.
If I'm tracking. So everything exists in wave format, right? Everything is a wave. Everything is omnipresent at all times. But we need to simplify things. And so we need the particle to be in a certain spot at a certain time to make sense of it. And because we have to simplify things. And we might be making that happen, right? It might be our measurement requirement because of our simple brains that take waves and put them into particle form because we're measuring it.
Mm-hmm.
So that applied in a discussion format is the same thing. We are trying to simplify this world that makes no sense to us, where we have very little data, and have a discussion or argument around something we're trying to simplify. And the very act of having the discussion to simplify it breaks the wave and makes it a particle and makes it false. It destroys the experiment.
Right. So I think I bring that to, we talk quantum mechanics but it has real world value in this day and age and what we're talking about.
You just did it right there, which is huge. And I never even thought about it from that perspective, but I'm not sure that most people are tracking what you're saying though.
So monkey mind is basically needing to know where that particle is or where it's going, one or the other. Meditation is sitting in the middle of that and understanding that it's the shell.
Yes.
Things are percolating. You're getting out of your own monkey way enough to where you're feeling existence itself. And what I mean by, and that's why I differentiate feeling from emotional response, because they're not the same. I'm talking feeling from a existential, I don't know if that's the right term, sense of awareness beyond your own individual construct of your ego. That doesn't dissolve your ego. It just represents that the ego itself, your ego that you are experiencing, is a shadow construct of maybe the quantum mind or existence itself, as a representation, as a cave on Plato's wall.
See, now I'm trying in my mind to apply that to the pyramids, because that was part of yesterday's discussion.
Mm-hmm.
Well, did slaves build the pyramid? Did aliens build the pyramid? Did advanced humans build the pyramid? Did one guy
I have a question for you on that.
Let me finish. Right? Is the pyramid? Does the pyramid even have to have been built?
That's where I was going with my question.
Right.
Does it affect you here and now?
Yeah, we're on the same page. Like, I hate to. Is the pyramid even there?
On one side, it's interesting to know that, but from a standpoint of it's like that distraction we were talking about yesterday. You can use that as a distraction from being in the here and now, or dealing with what you need what's important in the here and now for your own well-being. I have a great passion and interest in cultural anthropology. I'm going to come on here pretty soon and do some readings very similar to what Jonathan does, but this coming from some authors on integral consciousness and meditation. And one of these, there's two books from a particular author that I'm going to discuss later, who explores consciousness from an anthropological level.
Mm.
And so when you guys were talking, cone heads and brains, I kind of, went cross-eyed a little bit. And those are the folds and numerology and symbols that trigger you. For me, I've been looking, I love it when I see these shows and you see like special fetal features, like the prehensile tail that disappears by the time we're born, how things emerge that tie back genetically to just not single cell organisms, but very simple life forms eons and eons ago, and how we can trace that lineage, and we can still see some of those parts of even to other, to either fish, avian, reptile, that kind of thing, traits that we still carry, that you can see in the fetus development.
Yes.
But then also, I mean, I have a huge. I mean, it amazes me at Web Toes. There you go. Because we used to be ducks. But I mean, I get really fascinated with the idea that about 1.5 million years ago, not only did we have multiple hominid species from the hominid line with Homo erectus, Homo erectus, but we also had a hominid line that was non-Homo based over on Rudolfensis that had a huge sagittal crest that really had their muscles tied to that sagittal crest, and their teeth were almost more like cow-like, and they were extremely tough. And these guys existed for about 2 to 3 million years, alongside with our hominid line.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I can easily see one of our biggest problems that we have is us eventually, in our narcissism, killing each other off.
Absolutely. Well, we did. So, now, so now the fun part about that is you're right. And I mean, going back through anthropology, I mean, there have been various hominids who live together at the same time, who've interbred and who've probably killed and eaten each other, perhaps, which kind of tucks into the theory of whether or not multiple species at the same time developed intelligence. And maybe the answer is yes. But when they do, we see them as a threat and we kill them. You know, and so,
I think you can even look at like chimpanzees and look at how they tend to operate or how we interpret how they behave. And especially when you see competing tribes and the wars they tend to rage. Of course, I mean, roundabout way, what I'm getting back to is if you have a need to feel superior, that's just not some passive attitude that you have. Because the only way you really achieve that is an active suppression on an attack on those around you.
Right.
That's the only way that's achieved, because superiority on its own is always contrived, just like authority is.
Yes. And where is its origin? Fear?
I think its origins start, for me, from my experience, is it goes back to what we were talking about yesterday, from certainty and the need to be certain, and that need to be certain, us attempting to dictate terms to reality itself.
Okay.
If that makes sense. Because I think in a deep meditative moment, I don't care that I'm Homo sapien, if I'm a dog, if I'm a fish. I'm in the eye of the hurricane of existence itself. And that is my home.
Okay. All right. So this might be a little creepy. Where my mind goes is I'm okay, I think. Not sure. Thinking about it. I'm mostly okay with none of this being real. Right? You know how they talk about how this is all waves, right? You're not actually touching your laptop. You're not touching a surface or anything. These are all forces and fields that are repelling electrons and protons, right? You're looking at all waves.
Can I interject you right there? Because I think I want to help some people out if they feel like this is constructive for them. From trig, you know, if you take two cosine waves and they have the same shape, same peak and valleys, basically what we're talking about is that if you take those two waves and you add them together to where they're directly in phase, where the peaks to peaks are married together and the troughs to troughs are married together, at those peak phases is what we're seeing as material reality.
Yes.
The quantum, and then if you do that and you shift it just 100 degrees out of phase, they cancel each other out, and that is empty space. So even empty space, the void, is something, is a deconstructive wave. Now, the issue when it comes to quantum mechanics today is how far in and out of phase do they need to be, and that's a relative issue. There's not just one static value for that. So I just want to jump in and help. And there was something I was passionate about and how I could describe that. I wanted to interject.
And I'm glad that you did that, and I hate you for that both at the same time. And let me tell you why. Because now I'm not okay. I'm not okay. I was okay too. So let me tell you what. So right, so you're only seeing what cancels out each other. You're only seeing what you can interface with. And so when you think about how many waves have to be out there, and your brain just representing what it actually sees, and only what's actually important. So you're on, and usually that is going to be what you cancel out with. There is a lot out there that we can't see at all. I mean, if you think about like
our visible spectrum is less than 1% of the potential wave energy that we can pick up from UV, infrared, and on.
Something is everywhere. We are in a sea of life that we cannot see, that's slightly phased, where we can't even interface with, where it's just going through and through. And it's just like, it's a lot. It's a lot. And so, but we simple things down. I think I'm okay with it though. I think I'm, you know why I think I am? Because one, it doesn't matter if I am or not. If a wave's gonna pass through me, a dragon, I'm gonna get cancer and die. Like
I think whole universes are passing through us.
Oh, at all times. At all times.
That's why I talk about how we're radios and we tune. That's like K-Pax moment.
See, you saw K-Pax. And see, and this is why I appreciate talking to you. This is why you need to take your butt and be on live streams more often. Because this then circles back around to the whole yesterday event. Debating who built the pyramids. Debating, right? Things that nobody could possibly know. Like there is so many mystical wave frequency things that we can't even process. It could be that the planet is in a certain place in the solar system at a certain period of time, and people were flying. They were literally just thinking, and bricks were flying together and building a pyramid because they're interfacing with the way. Like there's so. It is probably the pinnacle of hubris that we actually think we ever know enough to form an argument to fight with another monkey in this wave dimension, seeing the very little that we do in a time where government keeps what we can even see from us. It's insanity to me. So I think that, Lori posted something a while ago. She just basically it's something about interfacing. We're having I think it was Elaine. Something awareness, and I lost it. There's too much. There were a bunch of good comments. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So one of the things that, and I'll be kind of exploring this too, and so some of y'all might not realize that anytime that Jonathan is in town here in La Mesa, which is about 10 minutes from me, I try to catch up with him at some point and go get jacked on coffee, have brunch, and sometimes we walk around La Mesa. And he grew up there, and it's one of, since I've lived here, it's one of our favorite spots to go to brunch, and I'm a brunch guy. I love brunch. But one of the things we talk about, and especially since he has a literary background, is and you can research this to help you, but there's what we call the primary voice and the secondary voice. The primary voice is the conversation that you have going on in your head. And as you're listening to me, you have these responses going on inside your head, and then your secondary voice is what's going to be typed or spoken or expressed in some kind of physical energy wave, whether it be audio. You're going to have mechanical energy trying to do oil painting or something like that, right? But it's a shadow construct of that primary voice.
Okay.
To me, I've hypothesized from my experience that there's what I call a universal voice, another layer below the primary voice. And I think when we talk about astrology, we talk about pyramids and symbolism, these are kind of the folds in time where those wave constructs are happening. So numerology is basically a fold in time. Numbers by themselves the universe doesn't operate on numbers, but that's just how the best way we know how to model it. And we see these folds just like when we see a cloud in the sky and go, that's a dog, right? And there's and Joseph Campbell has explored how we tend to have universal ways in how we do that in very similar ways, just like Chomsky discusses how we acquire language, especially in those first 10 years of our life, where you could have been adopted by a family in China with your same ethnic background, and you still would have picked up on the language just as proficiently as anyone who was born in that area, because at that time, your cerebral network was cartilage enough to pick up on those things, because those language constructs, they need verbs, nouns, proverbs, just like we do when we speak English. Well, the myth building and those myths, the myths really, and y'all talked about it a little bit yesterday, it's not about true or untrue. It is that brine between one more concrete first primary voice, secondary voice, and universal voice, and those walls to where they overlap and we can go between one and the other. Everyone has, to me, the only reason I get a little apprehensive and getting caught up in some of the conversations like yesterday is because from our standpoint, when we talk either Mayans, Egyptians, Greek, ancient Greece, if you want to talk Buddhism, Hinduism, and all these other practices, there's not going to be one superior system, because in order to get to have this conversation we're having right now, you have to understand that everybody has a different need to get to that aha enlightened moment. And part of that enlightened moment is part of that sovereign moment we were talking about, and allowing people to wear masks that on a live stream that we don't like, that don't affect us, because that possibly is what they need to get to that aha moment. And I don't know that. I can't make that decision for them. I have to give them the space to do that. So my little bunny trail of Reese's Pieces, the proverbial Reese's Pieces of my meditative journey and evolution is different than yours. There's no two that are ever the same. And that if you keep on wanting to have that controlled and put it into a box type of mindset, then you're getting in your own way. And that's part of that uncertainty issue that we were discussing about 10 minutes ago.
Ooh, let me jump in. Now I got to be anti. So I was just
anti.
So is it possible that someone else has to not be okay with you wearing a mask? Is it possible in their way to get to awareness, they have to have an issue with you and I wearing knit caps on the live stream and both wearing bluish gray shirts, which is really creepy and freaky both at the same time, because we didn't even plan to do this. But
I'm not wearing pants, by the way.
I'm
not wearing pants, by the way.
You ruined my thought. That just
I am wearing pants,
actually. So like our lives are like.
I would say yes, because I think every moment of your day and every experience you have is your meditation. It is your highest guru. Those are the things you need to do in order to get it. That's why I always like to say your life is your highest guru.
See, and this is the problem. This is the problem with not knowing the damn thing on this planet and like trying to lick. So I was just listening to a lecture this morning about Tesla. And who's a lady in India, and the Akashic records, right? Smartest man of our time talked about the smartest man literally that's ever been alive that we know talked about the Akashic records. Einstein to a degree, Casey, all of these who went to sleep and they tuned in with things that our brains are receivers, that they just let things in. And so I think I was talking to Christine about it earlier. And so when we meditate, we're basically just turning on our Wi-Fi. We're like silencing all the bullshit, all the identity from all the waves and everything. And you get to that moment of stillness and it allows downloads to occur. It turns your receiver on to this Akashic wave, all-knowing, informational, attuning to the frequency where you're getting access to infinite knowing, soul, whatever you want to call it. But everything else is just, it is a meditation. Everything, all day long, everything you're doing, you're just not jacked in. You're not hooked into the SSID. You're just not hooked into the Wi-Fi of the universal Akashic consciousness. I don't know. And half the time, I don't care. Like, it's fun. I'm enjoying the human experience. And like, even like the whole purpose of why I even pressed this button to do a quick live stream about, cuckoo virus ID and the DOD sending it out. Oh my God, run, we're not safe. Help us, please, help us, right? Like it's still an experience. And it's just, and I think that's why I laugh things off to a degree, because I think the more you really process how little we really ever know what's going on, and you think about how the ignorance and the arrogance, not just of someone wanting to debate you, but they think that they're correct and they can form arguments for your experience, but for a government, for others who abuse you in different ways on this ignorance that they actually think that they know anything about what they can do to abuse millions of people, if not billions. Like this whole existence is cuckoo. The whole it to me, it started off with cuckoo virus, and it's cuckoo because they literally poison people and we die from things that we shouldn't. But and cuckoo as an industry of Rockefeller medicine, the idea that you have to make things profitable to help people who die unless you help them, and you ban holistic, holopathic medicine for allopathic medicine, but our whole existence is cuckoo. This whole thing is nuts.
So Heaven Star at the beginning of this made a great point, and I've said it similar.
But it,
she talks about, we come on here, we have there's all sorts of media with news, other people's posts, alt media, between conspiracy, between what we think is going to happen, between edict and policy, government, new world order, agenda, yada yada yada, and we get essentially what we're being told what to believe is real, and then we go outside and fail to realize that that's reality. That should be more real than anything else, right? Our own personal perspective and what's happening right here in this moment. And it's part of the reason why I bring that up is part of my point from yesterday. They don't need our consent. They just need us to be so obsessively, compulsively distracted that we're paralyzed, that we don't act with it, that we don't go, where's our food coming from? Where's our water coming from? If the power goes down, how do I get hot water and keep my food that I do have cold and preserved, and don't have sewage backing up into my own indoor plumbing and turn my own house into a death trap if this goes on for longer than a month? We get so distracted that we don't think about that integrated sense of power. So what do we have in power? The simple things, or maybe progressively complicated things. And that's it's like the data I was talking about. Just because things are technically progressively complicated, we tend to surrender a lot of our own ability to understand and do our own analysis. And that's, to me, fascism is being told by someone with a doctorate degree what to believe. I remember writing a paper in physical anthropology exploring the idea that evolution, yes, survival of the fittest is an observable phenomenon in evolution, but perhaps it's not the impetus. Those are two different things sometimes. A correlation does not a causation make, kind of thing. And I remember emailing Alan Wolf, I believe, who was the head of physicists at Stanford, after watching What the Bleep Do We Know? And there was a physicist on there that basically violated what we were talking about with the uncertainty principle in his statement. He basically said that they had figured out they could. He made this quote that they took out of context and said they had figured out how they could do both at the same time, which violates the uncertainty principle. And I asked Alan Wolf about it, and believe it or not, the man emailed me 30 minutes later and was like, "Your understanding is correct. Yeah, that was an erroneous quote." I'm like, I was like, not only did I get a response, I was actually not wrong. It doesn't mean I was right, but I was at least not completely wrong. I was still in the conversational, at the table. I had a seat at the table going, "Oh, cool."
Enough to get a response, right?
Right, exactly. But we get so, we mute ourselves because we don't think we're smart enough. We're not skilled enough. We're too insecure. And these are meditative issues. And meditation at its core is learning how to walk naked in front of the universe.
Yes.
Because we have to come to terms with all these masks and these attempts to hide ourselves in our head, within our own conscious existence and how much we try to control and what's perceived outside of ourselves that we don't control.
So there's a lot there. That's the problem with talking to you about any damn thing. Um,
I'm sorry.
I'm gonna go back a little bit. So I think everything in my existence, I think about energy. Right. So you talk about how things come across the television from government, Paul Brady, heaven, whoever, where they're trying to pull you into their existence, their energy. And maybe we're constantly all doing this to each other as well as the television news. If it's not happening in your reality outside in your world, it's to a degree, it's not really real. And so I see things as though everything is trying to draw upon energy, your time, your belief, your understanding, your fear, reacting. Everything is a distraction. Literally everything in this existence is a distraction. So that's the first thing I think about. Something is always trying to get our belief or our energy. The next one, it's just too much. I lost the next one. But we do have to a degree, live in our own realities and not, if something comes across the television that fits with where you resonate, then run with it, right? There's no problem with that. But if it invokes some sort of fear, then you shouldn't. And this is where measurement comes in, right? So, like you said, we're walking around and we're fearful to do things because we're afraid we're going to get measured to some sort of degree. Because you don't fit up the standards of beauty. You don't think you're tall enough. You don't think you're too small. You're too big. You're too this, too that. So we're literally giving over our energy and our daily experience over to others, a system that qualifies whether or not we even have the ability to exist and walk out in nature as our true self. Do you see what I'm saying?
Oh, definitely. And the thing about it is, I bring it back to sometimes where we butt heads, right? And we might have I'm like, okay, from my perspective, I feel like you're overstepping what you think you know, and not taking this into account. But holistically, that doesn't mean that I'm going to deny your existence or deny that you can't claim to have an enlightened stance if you're not going to allow people to figure things out, and then also wait a minute, I might not agree with their symbology and their technique and their style of things, but I also have to make room for the fact, if I really understand that the universe has an infinite combination of all those sine waves and is trying to combine every damn combination it can together to fill the niche, and that it's co-chaotic, and as it does so, new opportunities arise in reaction to those things, then what does that mean about my point of really understanding evolution when I need someone to buy into my belief system, my explicit belief system, to believe what I believe just to make me feel comfortable about it? That means I'm not really, I like to prove to other people that, yes, I like to feel at home in the quantum soup, but eventually I need to get back to the harbor. I need to get back into my own ego construct. And I feel like that ego construct is more important than the actual quantum soup, so to speak.
I would say that the need for others to give you their energy, their time, or their belief is a great act of weakness and cowardice.
I would agree.
On the behalf of government or anything else or anybody else. I also want to clarify that we never butt heads because I don't think you care what I think. Well, qualify in terms of you care enough about my experience and my discovery of self and evolving that you really don't care what I think. I really don't care what you think. Within that package, that we all are having our own experiences. We don't have to qualify whether or not each other is approving of where our minds are.
I think I can communicate the threshold a little bit more succinctly right now.
Do it.
It is when people are forcing you to adopt their belief system at the expense of your own personal experience.
Yes. Violation. The violation. That's the abuse.
It's one thing to speak something that you believe in your own experience strongly and passionately. And have these moments where, okay, we might not be able to have a constructive, honest conversation about this, or we're going to have to walk away agreeing to disagree because we're coming from perspectives that we can't relate to. Or you don't have an understanding of my evolution of how I rendered how I perceive things in this moment. And you just don't understand that. Michael was talking about my accent earlier. Just to clarify, I grew up overseas. I'm a Texan by birth, and my accent is jacked up for some people. So,
and there was another question in the room. Clemency wanted to know if you've ever had a dream where you're out walking naked, and if I can answer that, every night. Every night I dream of all of y'all, just everybody just buck wild, everybody just out there just walking around, Garden of Eden.
So I used to have these weed dreams, which are part of when you're in the restaurant industry and you wake up in a cold sweat and you've had this dream. And for me, it would happen like once every couple of weeks, where it was huge rush, and then the mirror behind the bar turns into a new fictitious segment of the restaurant that never existed before, and there's tables you haven't talked to in an hour, and you look at the menu and it's in Braille, and then you look down and realize the only thing you're wearing is an apron, no pants. No.
Hey, as long as it's not cold. Yeah, I had a weird dream last night. I was hugging dogs. And I'm not going to go any further than that.
I love dogs. I love dogs. I'm a dog person.
It was weird. I woke up, I was hugging dogs, and I woke up, I could almost feel the oils on my hand. I thought I had to wash my hand because I was hugging like neighbor's dog. It was weird. It was just.
and that goes to, and Jonathan talked about this, is kind of how we take things literally in our interpretation. For me, from a young age, I remember like the first time I had a dream. I think we were living in Athens when this first happened, when I was aware of the mortality of my mom. I had a dream that she passed. I was about 7 or 8.
Oh wow, that's not.
And I came to realize that the details of the dream were only there to seed my experiences to convey a feeling. And sometimes we get one kind of mix for the other. To me, the feeling is that universal feeling that, like, okay, but it's something that I explore when I'm painting. Of going, everyone gets caught up in the objects and the scene and the colors and stuff, but we're trying ultimately to convey a feeling, because that's where all communication starts.
Mm. We're
using these objects to the best of our ability from the standpoint of trying to seed and foster that, and you kind of have to. I remember when I started painting and I was reading something of going, if someone doesn't see your painting and participate in it, is art really happening? And it goes back to that K-Pax moment that people, in my mind, lose in that movie, is going, yes, you can physically take something and move in Newtonian space the light years it takes to go from Earth to K-Pax. There's also a chance that there was a conscious entity that was born in that Newtonian space to K-Pax that projected their consciousness into someone that had abandoned their through a psychotic break, had abandoned their conscious shell and left their body, an open IP address, as it were. And they just, instead of playing checkers on a Newtonian field, they played chess and went, we're going to project our consciousness into this conscious existence. You can do both. And right now we spend most of our time trying to push these shadows, and we do have effects on this, but we need to learn how to kind of play chess in that and go, oh, instead of being so caught up and addicted to the shadows, we need to come to understand that there's an opening to this cave, that there's something that this shadow represents, and operate on a little bit more integral plane.
So and I'm glad that you watch K-Pax. I 1 in 1,000 people I get to talk to about K-Pax. Most people haven't seen the movie yet. So you think that it had to do with he checked out of his IP address. That he freed up his IP address for someone to take it over because of such trauma from early childhood, and not that those beings evolved with the ability to just hack his signal.
So it's almost like the body of that original person that was Homo sapien that had that psychotic break. We're just renting his body as if it was an apartment, and he had a psychotic break. Then the entity of K-Pax, but our understanding and our Newtonian addiction to material objectified things is we look at them as one and the same. We never even entertain that possibility. And to me, I think that's one of the concepts that was intended to be explored.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. To me, it subscribes to the contractual nature of the people who feel that there's a contractual nature to the universe, wherein you can't be possessed, right? Like the old scriptures talk about, that you actually have to give up. You have to release the lease on that address for something else to take over, and maybe that does happen when your life is too hard. But anyway, I think there's a contractual side of it, to where you just don't care anymore, and then they're on. I don't know. We're kind of pushing it. I don't think most people have seen the movie, but I love K-Pax. I mean, I've watched that movie 100 times. I might watch it again tonight. It answers a lot of things.
So when that light flashed at the end, the way I view it, that was K-Pax, the consciousness, leaving that shell of the body behind, going home, and then the catonic self, that shell, was left over.
So what about the person he took with him?
Oh, I didn't even entertain that. Yeah.
I don't know what to do with that either.
But I think that's one of the things where it'd be interesting to talk to the writers, right?
And see.
Yeah. What are we missing here? And what are we supposed to?
Like there should be an exhaustive concordance just for that movie alone.
But this is the problem with understanding that, because if someone come out and overtly just told it to you, you probably wouldn't appreciate it or fully understand the concept in a meaningful way.
Right. Absolutely. Which takes me back to yesterday's explosive moments for me. I don't know about other people, but
explosive moments. I get in visions of stall number 3 on the toilet. You mentioned explosive moments, and I start getting.
Oh. No, nobody brought up okra. We weren't talking about okra. No. I was thinking about the concepts of the movie in Hollywood, right? Like this idea that during meditative states, you're a receiver and you're receiving something from somewhere, other dimensions, other planets, other frequencies, whatever, other variances in resonance. What if it is that people in Hollywood are actually being inspired by, and writers of books being inspired in the same way Tesla and Casey's are, like the movies like The Matrix and K-Pax, and the movies that help us to expand our minds and think about our own existences. What if that is one of the key ways that we're evolving and moving forward and getting to question our current reality through means of K-Pax, just how you said.
So one of the things I think, in there was a succinct moment on yesterday's cast on the Hermetica at the end, talking about how the power of knowledge gets taken away just by merely suppressing it. And I think one of the things that happens a lot is there's systems at play that will give you a third to 60% of the truth of the technology, a little glimpse behind the curtain, and only a portion of the puzzle, and take away a meaningful way of like, okay, we had the recipe, but how do we apply this kind of thing? Like there's a key point missing. in part of it, I mean, this is one of the, I mean, religion has always been used first and foremost to kind of legitimize the classes of the people who wanted to feel like they were somehow superior, that they somehow were speaking on behalf of God, that they were somehow God-like. That's one of the problems with when we talk about some of these. We have to be aware of that when we talk about some of these symbolism and systems of symbolism and thought and belief. Astrology has been used that way. Everything has been done that way. It's codified.
Right. Any form of power is always utilized that way.
And so, I mean, like I said before, all lives, the best ones that get applied and disseminated, have some element of truth to them. And for the powers that be that use that, the main goal is to just distract us and abandon our own ability to render things for ourselves and devalue our own personal experiences. And I think that's one of the reasons. So Jonathan and I talk about some of the meaningful things of what it means to kind of maybe do these live casts. For me, I mean, because if I don't have some kind of feeling I believe in, then I feel like it's just kind of a narcissistic ego exercise sometimes. But I think for me, it's kind of redigesting and reformulating some of these concepts and learning what I call the mercurial patois, meaning that language has always been used as a evolutionary and moving target based on the understanding of the society that's using that language. If we need to go and develop a new paradigm, we can't use the current language system. We have to get into, and so you want to talk like capitalism, you want to talk like communism and these isms, and realize that they have been successfully colloquialized to mean the exact opposite of their originating ideations for hundreds of years. So instead of getting and you take capitalism, for example, and you mention that, you're going to get caught up in a 3-day long debate with somebody talking about what capitalism is supposed to mean and not meaning, and instead of going, stop it. We don't need a system of a public agent that represents the owners of a society and the tax base that creates that. That's not free market.
It's not free anything.
So what I'm doing here is I'm getting away from the terms and I'm starting to talk strictly on the concepts themselves. It undermines and unplugs that conversation. It doesn't even make that happen. All of a sudden it starts to become constructive. And what you'll find is that sometimes it's not just because it doesn't always become meaningful, because you'll see these people throw these temper tantrums and want to get back into that realm to fight about the term itself. They don't want to talk about the concepts themselves.
Well, no, because within the concepts are the solutions.
But that's exactly, they're addicted to that distraction.
And that's the problem, right? So the system needs you distracted to constantly do this. And what did it for me with capitalism, and this is why I appreciate our conversations also, is because I think you view things also from an engineering perspective, right? System analysis and how the system is designed to work. So what did it for me with capitalism, communism, and socialism was the fact that they're all based within that construct of capital, right? Those with the most jewels design the system, and they tell everyone where they need to be, whether it's a Ponzi pyramid scheme with the whole capitalism and how cronyism fits in with that, or communism and socialism, where you've got the kings and the lords, those with the most jewels dictating what everybody else must do. It's the same system to me. And that's why the arguments are all from within those constructs, because we're being controlled and we can't think outside the box. So I think when you break it down to a more principled level, whether or not we need slavery, do we need a control system? Should those with the most jewels or the most money or the most power dictate to the others? And the answer always has to be no. We cannot have a power-based system and be free beings having human experiences, for the fulfillment of the whole, or at least for ourselves.
The funny thing is it's funny to watch how the system has codified it intentionally by design to where we want to fight about the brand of how that should happen rather than not if we need rulers. Like we're talking about the brands as if the brands themselves have a meaningful impact in working towards our own populist sovereignty and our own populist needs and survival and health. and well-being when it doesn't matter what ism and what brand it is. It's never intended to work towards. We never get to that conversation. We get caught up in just the branding, and that's by design.
Because it's simple, right? And this walks the conversation right back, because it's simpler for that monkey mind or reptilian mind or whatever people call it. It's simpler to put things in boxes. A good example is, so I was having a conversation with a family member this morning, right? Which goes back to the whole papers, please, right? The idea that you need a card to go to the movie theater or go to a concert or go to a bank account or get a driver's license. You have to have things injected in your body or you can't do these things. To me, this is no different than reinstilling the black codes. Right? This is reinstilling Jim Crow. And I've been saying this for a while, that the reason they select John and Bowden because they're going to roll out Jim Crow and black codes. But what I was trying to explain to my brother is that, you know, when you say black code today, it doesn't mean skin color. It's a statement of privilege, right?
It's a class issue.
It's a class issue, right? So you have Asians, Hispanics, white, black, who will all get caught up in the black code. And my point to him was that, so they're rolling out these requirements of the impoverished population who meet that term black. I prefer to call them poor codes, right? So if you can't take care of yourself right now in terms of stimulus, if you can't, what happened?
Verbal castrator just laid down the law on calling someone small peepee.
Oh, see.
Just right in the pussy. Just
right. Oh, good Lord, so I'm trying to equate my mind. I'm not paying attention. I know who probably said it. Coco must be in the room. No, she's a thug. No. So when you think of things from a system perspective and you get rid of the isms, then you can say, you know, and this is my point to him, is that, well, I'm a privileged person, right? To a degree, I'm a supremacist. I have a house, I have an income, I have a car, I have things other people don't have. For the sake of the current system, I don't fit within the poor code where you get to experiment on my body because I don't have the things to buy my way out of being experimented on, right? And so when you think of things from a principle perspective, then you actually are looking at the actual problem. And so you are getting to a solution. And this system doesn't want you to find the solutions. When you think about it as a system, not the American Empire or the German Empire or the Roman Empire or Japanese Empire or the Ottoman Empire, the empire should not exist. Then you don't get bogged down in the ism, because you think about it from a system perspective. But I think that's what the problem is. They need people debating the isms. Otherwise, you get to the solutions, and then we can evolve consciousness.
Well, that was the issue with Black Lives Matter and even Antifa.
Oh yeah,
exactly. You want to distract from something that is a class issue by using racism.
Yes.
And again, the best lies have some truth to them. That doesn't mean that there's not racist components to that class issue.
Exactly. We're set up to fail consistently and constantly by the system, because the system, it doesn't want to fail. Like, the basis of every system is its existence. And if you actually defy its existence, it will destroy you. If the system is sending you money, if it's saying that you don't get the cuckoo virus, if you got the right sign or something like that, then you are not defying the system. You're not fighting the power. You are helping that system. Mm-hmm. You know, the very act of fighting an ism, you know, that's what supports that Chinese finger trap. The harder you pull, the harder the other side's pull. The system gives you a thumbs up.
It goes back to that, what we were talking about, going back and seeing a mass portion of the population wanting to debate the isms.
Yeah.
And keep themselves distracted from the actual principle.
The isms are easy.
The meaning, tangible principle that they can, as actually within their power to act upon.
Okay, here's one for you. Paul said, so socialism isn't what you think. Capitalists defined it for you.
Well, capitalism is basically the state. And it doesn't matter if it's monarch, democratic, representative, and or authoritarian. Countries and the state are created as the public agents of the owner class. So we're not even going to have the same conversation.
Can a state exist? Is it okay for anything to have power over people? That's the real question.
The idea that the state is there to protect the populace and work on and represent the will of the populace is a myth that the state creates to basically substantiate its existence, to authorize it to speak and act on the populace's behalf, which is contrived.
Verna hit another one right there, which is good too, because, you know, so this whole Medicare for all distraction, right? So, you know, this idea that we should be paying for Medicare to help save lives here or keep people alive by blowing up other countries and killing people. If you have a state, what I see is I always see there will always be a trade-off. It's always a rob Peter to pay Paul solution, because everything about the state revolves around state power, and it gets its power from divide and conquer. So everything is always, if you get a leg up, somebody else has to get a leg down. And that's how the state maintains its power.
So if authority is always contrived, then the first line of capital is going to be what it takes to actually impose that authority. If you need to protect your land, that's why I always like to say, like, land ownership, for example. You can't have land ownership without violence. Because someone, I mean, you have to have something to keep it from, you know, to protect it.
Right.
You know.
But you and I, yeah, I'm processing through it, but you and I agree on, like, I don't agree with land ownership. I think it's, I don't agree with ownership at all. To me, I think ownership is an ignorant concept.
I think we need to redefine our concept of ownership from a standpoint of what we can personally use and utilize. And if we need other individuals to help us manage and utilize and manage that, then this gets back to a monetary conversation, right? Where I think I do agree that we need some kind of monetary system that greases the wheels of transactions. Like, if you need bananas and I have coconuts, then we can have some medium of exchange so that you can minimize your transactional cost to go get bananas. You don't have to spend 3 days trying to find out where in your 50-mile radius someone has bananas, because that sometimes the value of that transaction cost is going to way overblow the value of the bananas themselves. But only up to that point. To that point. At that point, the monetary system has no other function, meaning, and or value at that point. And I think that the reason why I bring that up is because, you know, a whole sense of ownership has to be, I always love the idea of like an energy-based, BTU-based economy, monetary system.
Explain BTU-based.
It's like a calorie-based, whatever energy component, whether it's newtons or whatever, something that's going to have to take to assimilate, extract, transport, and distribute a raw material.
Well,
a BTU today is the same BTU 10,000 years ago.
Yeah, but there's a value aspect though, right? So, you know, there's a calculation there. So it's BTU, but there's also a value. You know, the energy I put into it at this point in time, because I have these resources or these muscles, I'm expending less energy than what you would, but your need is higher than the energy I expend. There's a value aspect to that calculation.
And but I guess that's what I like to be you, because I like to diminish as much of that subjective value.
Yeah, BTU is the beginning of the discussion, right? I completely agree with that. I think there are some other factors in the equation, but also I would say that from a barter perspective, right? So back to the coconut example, it's only an inefficient system because automation isn't used to sync up, you know, the person with the coconuts and the person with the chickens, right? Mm-hmm. There are actually apps out there for that now that, you know, we really don't exploit much. But the funny thing is, it's not the funny thing. The sad thing is, I don't think most people realize what we're even talking about. And this is why I think either the mass media, the state is just too good at what it does, or most people are just like zombie non-player characters, like we are in a simulation, and the clones are just here to keep us learning and struggling and moving forward. They don't really have minds of their own. They can't think about things from a principled perspective.
But that's why that fascism, to me, that's the ultimate base of fascism. To me, fascism is the addiction to a belief system, and a belief system that you're being told to believe, and devaluing your own ability to formulate those beliefs for yourself based on your own personal experiences.
Yes. Yes. We are all bigots. I think I was processing through that video a long time ago. We're all bigots in where we're born and the experiences we have. And it's okay to be a bigot if you're not abusing anybody else with your own bigotry, right? Your own personal bigotry. And that takes us right back to the PowerPoint, right? Everything is fine till you abuse somebody else with what you think that you know. And life could just be so easy, Bofan. My God, life could be so amazing here if people would just start to think about the principles of the thing and not being such abusers.
Right.
We went off. We see, and so real quick, this is why I don't smoke weed. People ask me that question. Well, how come you don't do psychedelics? You don't actually need it to get to certain levels, I think, of understanding. And I can't imagine what would happen if I did smoke weed. Like, this is crazy stuff for me. I don't want to go beyond this. Like, this is why I'm trying to go back to comments now, because it's just like, all right. we went to the extent of probably where we should go for the moment, because I think now, like, and I think most of the people around here know what we're talking about. But to anyone else who heard this conversation, we're just aliens. We're literal aliens just having this conversation back and forth. They need to know, well, what side are you on? Are you a Democrat? But wait a minute, he said he was a Republican earlier, but that guy's a black guy. They're both talking like they're American, so they're from America. Like they have to take it to the ism to even know where to engage in the conversation. And so I think most people don't even know where the first step is, in not being a bigot.
It's funny because about a year and a half ago, I went home. It was before my mom's cancer. So we were all having some cigars and whiskey, and someone asked who I voted for, and of course, I'm in Trump country at the time, and I'm like, I didn't vote, and I'm like, I haven't never voted in my adult life. Why? Don't you? I mean, it's funny. It's just when you don't play the game, they don't know how to process that. When you don't think on the binary level and reinforce that religion, they don't know how to deal with that. And I'm very thankful that I come from a very diverse background and had very diverse experiences living overseas. I've always, to be honest with you, these aren't new conversations for me. I've been having these conversations in my head since I was a toddler.
You're further evolved than most people.
I had a conversation with my grandmother on my dad's side at about age 2 to 2.5 to 3, where I'm disappointed in her because she was one of those more authoritarian grandparents. You need to respect me because I'm your elder, and she's disrespecting me in the process. And I'm looking at her going, and I'm disappointed in her because I'm like, why is it with my other grandmother who's never tried to do this power trip with me, who is operating from this innate sense of, I want you to respect me, so therefore I'm going to respect you, that you don't even understand that basic principle to the point to where I can see it in practice in what you're doing right now. I had awareness of that at that age, in that moment, and spoke on it.
Yeah. Well, and to me, but it's not surprising. There's certain kids who come here and they don't take the coding well, right? They don't take the indoctrination well. And there's something about your system that defies it. And that's why I think everybody's here for a reason. Everyone has an ability to help the rest of us see things in the matrix that we wouldn't be able to see. If we were all easily indoctrinated, then we would never get anywhere. And see, the problem is it makes people who can see things early pariahs, right? We make them lepers.
So I think, this is, this conversation, the extension of yesterday's conversation with sovereignty, in my mind, I think it has a direct line. And people don't understand that the first level of rebellion you're going to have is with your own family. Because it's funny, the things we adopt in our own belief system and styles in order to feel like when you're young and don't realize it, if you don't like the same football team, like the same music, and these types of things at a very young age, you feel like you're not going to be loved.
Mm.
It takes a while to kind of be able to step on your own and become your own person.
Yeah.
And it's funny, I had a family, a very dear friend of mine was going through some moments. They were traveling across country, and his spouse was hesitating. And because that was going against her mom's wishes, and she had never had that fight with her mom. She had never had that moment with her mom to be able to kind of go, I can listen to your concerns and respect your wishes, but at the fundamentally, this is what I want to do for me. And I'm like, I told my friend, I was like, that is the physical cliff of your relationship right now, because until she can do that for herself, you are going to have, that's going to be the cul-de-sac of your relationship and the ability for it to go and grow. That realness and that eye-to-eye conversation that she is not wanting to have with her mom, your relationship with her is not going to overcome that for herself.
Well, do you think we protect children far too much?
I think we protect children as an excuse to protect ourselves.
Ooh, explain.
I was raised as the anchor and reason for my parents' relationship, and they didn't dissolve their relationship until after high school, and I resented that fact at a young age. I didn't want to be, I was not the reason for their existence. Their existence was the reason for their existence. And we lived a long time, almost as if we were at the gate at the airport waiting to get on the airplane that never showed up.
Ooh.
That's a very personal tangential insight into my upbringing, but I mean, it's real. And so there's a lot of resentment that I had, that I felt at a very young age with that. And at the same time, I'm looking at, so I've had to have those moments with my parents where I'm like, you're not even real with each other. You're not even real with yourselves.
Wow.
You know.
Wow.
You know, you're hearing mutterings late at night with maybe a couple drinks of things that they want to say to me and or their spouse that they don't have the backbone to say in a sober moment. And you're like, and I lived a privileged childhood. Everything was provided for me, and I had great experiences overall. But, you know, when you go through a couple of years where there's one parent living in the bedroom, the other guest bedroom, for long periods of time, and everyone's walking on eggshells, it creates PTSD. I remember having a conversation with an ex-girlfriend several years ago that we hadn't talked for a while. She had gone through counseling, and I remember relaying to her from something that she said of this awareness that I had, that I knew where everybody was at the house at all times. That's how uneasy my household was from the standpoint of I couldn't be within my own inner psyche. In fact, that's probably why I have a lot of the insight I do, because I crawled into my own shell at a very cerebral level.
We had to. Yeah. You had no other choice. It reminds me of how the Tibetan monks begin to actually process thought. They had no choice. They were stuck in caves in a very cold, harsh environment where, they couldn't go out, play ball and do this and grow. And so you went back inside yourself. Having a lot of thoughts when it comes to it. We certainly all are here for a reason. I think some kids are sent to certain families for good reasons. And another reason, I'm not a proponent of stay together. Let's stay together. Let's keep trying. Let's keep trying. No, if you made a mistake, you're supposed to fix it. And sometimes Marriage is a mistake.
If that's part of your inner truth and you're being honest and you're talking those hard conversations in order to do that, I have no problem with that. But that's it. But if you want to stick together to not have those conversations and somehow think that something meaningful is going to happen, I think that's just the wrong message.
Well, you do more damage.
I think so.
Yeah, you do more damage, and I think this is another aspect of religion, right? This is another aspect of, I never really thought about. So where did this idea of you can't ever get a divorce come from? And just having a Christian background,
control.
What is it that the society is more stable for production? For the kings and lords, of people who get married, stay married, and have kids, raise kids, farm, as opposed to it being.
I think it's simple. I think it is abandonment issue sold as this benefits society when it doesn't. It's a band-aid to overcome maybe people's fear of abandonment, as portrayed as if it benefits society when people don't want to own up to their abandonment issues. There's risk in relationships. People change, and they change every day. And you gotta give them in an enlightened relationship. You have to give them the space, and that's part of your love, is to give them the space for that. And sometimes they're gonna grow, and you're gonna grow apart. The love part of a relationship is very easy. It is that intimate honesty of going. This person deserves my authentic self, and vice versa, is the hard part of the relationship. And most people, I think we're conditioned, and I think it'd be interesting to have a conversation talking about how today's relationships are used against us as part of the homogenization of our culture and to make us easier to control by the state. Because I think they go hand in hand. I mean, marriage is a political mechanism.
It is, right? And the state feels they have the authority over the contract, right? You can't get married without the state. You can't get divorced without the state. And in that state, they use it as a means of controlling you, controlling the children, controlling your assets. Absolutely. I would say if I ever get married again, I'm going to go to, I don't know, Africa, Puerto Rico, South America, somewhere, find out what their customs are. Get the leaves, some herbs, rub them on my face, put on the skirt, whatever I got to do, and just do that. But
if you do it in Nigeria, you'll get a whole bunch of sweet potatoes and yams out of the deal. That used to be their currency back before colonization.
Deal. I'm all for that.
Not a bad way to go.
I don't want to get paperwork and lawyers and judges and all of that stuff out of it. Nah. We've already given up too much energy and power. Like, these are all contracts. And like, we talk about sovereignty and like taking back our souls and taking back ownership in who we are, giving it up more. And that's just one thing I never even thought about. Like, I was never interested in it. That's just another way you're giving the state more power over you and your children. And we need to leave every way we can.
But one thing we need to hit and touch upon very succinctly is realizing, wait a minute, there's these entities that play in the system that can organize themselves how they see fit. And we can't, and we're going to be told and dictated how we can organize ourselves, even at the most simple, mundane household level. And I think that's something that I think we need to kind of bring to light. It's funny to me because from a cultural anthropological view, Israel and that whole area in Beirut and Lebanon is very pivotal because you've had many species of hominids travel through there on their way out of Africa. So not just, we're talking even beyond ancient times, we're talking way past archaic times, we're talking 20, 30,000 years ago, 120,000 years ago and beyond, right? But there's a style of living to where it's multi-generational. The grandparents were there, they helped with the child rearing while the breadwinners were out in the field, they're doing what they had to do with their skills. as the breadwinners get older, the kids are getting older, they're becoming the breadwinners, and then there's, we don't have to worry about bringing. And it's something I'm living with today and watching some family members, in assisted living situations, and how the system isn't in play to be able to take care of your parents at that level and to care for each other. And first and foremost, we have to come to realize that the economic constraints we have on us impact our own personal relationships, and they're usually the biggest hurdle, and that's by design.
Yeah, that was actually a statistic that came out of Oprah. Well, for me anyway, when I first saw it, and it said the number one reason that people get, or the largest category of excuses or reasons for divorce, were financial. That it was the greatest stressor. People couldn't put things together. They didn't make enough money. They had challenges with this or whatever. And so the stresses we're given economically, through everything, like even now, like even in the lockdowns, everything is done and designed to control us. Everything is done through artificial scarcity and control to stress us into compliance. Right.
Well,
and so back to the whole cuckoo virus ID, right? Like the whole purpose of giving an adult vaccination record is to control what trains you can get on, what parts of the city you can go to, like in China, how to control your bank account. If you can get a driver's license, if you can get, car registration, you have to capitulate to the corporate state in order to do that. So everything is certainly, you will not have freedom and you will not have fun unless you've had all your adult vaccines.
Right. It's, people don't understand that. I think we get blindfolded, and we're so busy thinking near term that we don't realize that our economic capacity has an evolution. We all get older, we start getting the health problems. You might be the breadwinner for 10 years and down the road. And then if you're in a relationship, the dynamics between the partners, of one, it's something that I'm very conscious of right now. It's like, you want to buy a house in this environment, in this market? And yeah, the numbers look good now, but what happens in 3 years? And there's something, I graduated from Western up in Bellingham in 2009. And, I was in the engineering technology department. And for the years before that, they were literally pulling people out of class to get work. That last year, and I was on Formula SAE, which is a racing team. So I was seeing the economics play out in my senior year, but there was not one request for internship or anything at the front desk that year. And so it impacted me greatly, because I spent several years doing contract work wherever I could find it. But I was coming to realize, like, wait a minute, our generation can't be dependent on just a centralized locality, because when the times get tough, we have to think nationally and going to other states to go chase opportunities in this economy. And that's by design. So why would I want to go invest into a house that in 3 years, the economic situation might be such that I'm gonna have to uproot myself and go there? And if I have a home that I can't sell here because we've had a crash, then that inhibits me from go chase that opportunity that I feel like I need to, just to tread water in the system.
By design.
So and that's part of the Native American in me. I have about a quarter of Native American, and I think I blame it on that. That's part of my psyche, is kind of like I have more of that TP, like, okay, well, we need to go somewhere else and take the herd with us, right? Because the grasses are greener over there. We need to let this replenish and that type of thing. We need to change. We have to have a little bit more of a meaningful mindset and awareness to that, and kind of look at, okay, how much of the system is putting in places where we all need to be in our own apartments, our own condos, our own homes, so we can all buy our own washers and dryers and infrastructures and complicated matters. I'd love, in an ideal situation, I'd have 5 acres of land. I'd have these adobe structures probably in a circle. And in the middle would be almost like a nice campsite, kitchen, dryer, shower, situation, infrastructure.
Yeah. Well, I think we're heading there. I think that not just that some of us are starting to have conversations about it, but as a society, we need healthy communities. We need healthy systems. We need healthy houses. Speaking of Adobe, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so, the only thing that I'll chime in there with there is that, but the dishwasher needs to be 3D printed, right? Your house needs to be 3D printed. The kitchen needs to be 3D printed. And this is what leads me back to Jacques Fresco. I mean, I love him in the Venus Project, where he had a model of, listen, this is how we can fix things and use automation to give human beings the bare necessities needed for them to not become psychopathic and struggle. And I think that is the basis of all my beliefs at this point in time, which is, until we have something that looks like, I hate the word government, but something that looks like a facilitating facility that's going to provide the mechanisms that do the providing to see to everybody's needs. I have no interest in the voting system. I have no interest in the government. I have no interest in what they're doing, what they want to do, where they want to go, because everything I see from them is all about keeping people suffering to control them.
So
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna want to jump off here in the next 5 or 10 minutes, but I want to.
I'm with you. I'm done. I'm tired. And
But I want to bring up probably in this continent, Native American culture was probably the most direct democracy type of entity that ever existed. And I want to point out what the government did to get them to subscribe to our incorporated sovereignty, and how many millions of buffalo did they kill? So that the Native American cultures had to participate in our system, because that's what, back in the 1920s, when they forced property taxes on self-sufficient agricultural communities that had no need for a monetary system, because they would share in farmers markets with their community and get a huge majority of their needs off that. All of a sudden, every year they have to have property taxes. They have to go figure out how to get currency to do that. Why do you think they were forced to have property taxes? It wasn't simply because the government wanted the money. It was they wanted to force them to participate in the system when they otherwise they wouldn't. It's that type of thinking that we need to become aware of on a large scale, not just you and I. I'm talking. To me, it's eye-opening.
Yeah, I think we are, though. I think we are. I think that more and more people are having this particular discussion. I've never been alive where people were talking about how do we actually heal the human population, right? Everything is always, they're not interested. That's utopia or politics. Mm-hmm. Now there are a lot of people who are having this discussion who are planning. And so, but knowing the concept of what you just talked about is key. So when you talk about moving, but one thing, direct democracy, that was deep as the ocean. The idea that certain Native American cultures and tribal groups had more of a direct democracy than anything else, where everyone was sovereign, right? From kids to women to the adults, where everyone got a say in what happens, is phenomenal.
Well, for the most part, if you didn't want to participate in a war, then you just didn't involve yourself in it.
Yeah,
no one could force you to participate in it. Even the chief couldn't force you to participate in it.
Right. And so they had to destroy that as a model. They had to destroy that culture, destroy those people, destroy the buffalo to do that, and then create a system so hard. I like how Bob Marley puts it. He says that they made their world so hard that you have to struggle every day, right? And this world was intentionally made this way. They don't tax you because they need to tax you. They tax you because they don't want you to be free. Nobody owns land in America, not because they don't necessarily want you to own land. When you have land, you can just go live your own life. You can dig a well, grow food, and not participate in the system. They literally have to break your ability to develop healthy and be free and independent in order to maintain the growth and power that they do.
But that hits home. That hits home at the very beginning of this, and we're talking about distractions. survival itself used as the primary distraction and confusing that survival for living.
Yeah, yeah. This is what I mentioned to you the other day about the mermaids. We go back to the mermaid discussion. So the mermaids are significant. I'd love to talk about the real mermaids, and Bigfoot. As long as Bigfoot has a free energy device that I can use and tie back. Like even when I go off in my fun distractions, the aliens, the UFOs, I do my best to always link it back to how do we apply this to real problems? Like the whole alien thing is fun. Government got secrets, invention security act 1970, like that's fun. But at the end of the day, tie it back. And I'm gonna go back to yesterday's conversation. So we just had an amazingly deep, powerful live stream yesterday. And if anyone didn't watch that, they need to go watch that. You got to skip every third comment, but don't worry about that. I'm skipping all the comments here. But I see people.
I didn't help the comments yesterday. I was part of the functionality as usual.
I barely even saw that you were there. I don't remember your comments yesterday.
I was there at the beginning. I was acting a fool at the beginning, and then I had.
But that's required. Somebody has to be the fool. Like in this family, there's a requirement. You have to have 5% fools, or no. Someone has to make jokes. Somebody has to post the eggplant.
What's funny about that is, I usually, I have, I'm very protective of who's on my friends list, and I have a very good camaraderie, and we have a repertoire and a rapport that we've developed over time, and I cherish that. And it's funny because like some people get threatened, like if they're not part of it and they see it. It's almost like they want to make it about them, even though I don't even know who they are. Like I don't even know of their existence in some sense. But it's funny to watch that. Some of that played out yesterday. It was pretty funny.
Not surprising. Not surprising. But to tie yesterday back to what's sustainable, and I think this is where and I posted some of Paul's comments today. We disagree in some places. We don't disagree when it comes to sustainable communities and living off grid. That's how we met. But taking that and tying that back, and I think this is where we usually end up disconnecting, is whatever people enjoy as a distraction, and everything's a distraction. I personally, and maybe it makes sense for you as well, sort out how do you tie that back to creating a healthier planet, a healthier society, or a healthier community. Yesterday's discussion was powerful because when you can tie back what the ancients knew in terms of developing consciousness and ended up in creating the societies like the Native American societies where they valued everybody. Everybody had a say. Direct democracy type stuff. That applies to today. And that's why it's not a pointless or useless conversation. Everything is applicable if you can tie it back. Like even flat earth. I'm fine. I have a bunch of flat earth friends that I'm fine with it because they go back to a default, statement of, well, NASA's lying. And they're right about that. NASA's done an awful lot of lying. Do we know everything they lie about? Not necessarily. But should we have a society where a government organization is even allowed the freedom or space or secrecy to lie if they even wanted to?
But you touch upon one of the absolutes that again, it goes to that desire of absolute knowing, a need or addiction for it. And if we don't have it, we'll create it. Yes, we can't trust everything that NASA does. That doesn't mean that. And it's one thing to go, well, I have a hard time figuring out for myself whether the Earth is round or spherical or flat. And I need to learn how I can figure that out for myself, one way or the other, with the best of my ability. That's a different conversation than going, this is happening, so that must mean this is true, this absolute truth. When there's no, there's a need for a black and white there. When it's like, no, it's you have gray areas, you have shades of gray. You're always going to have shades of gray.
Yes.
And that's where I have problematic conversations or issue, and I'm like, oh, you want it, because then you're turning into a religion.
Yeah.
It goes back to the ability to be in that unknown and admit what you don't know.
Yeah. Mine is with laughter. I'll go down a certain avenue and it's just like, wow, oh, this, that, and the other, aliens, UFO, da 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 da, and I'll stop and I'll just laugh it off. Just like, what do I really even know anyway? Like, it's interesting, it's fascinating. At the end of the day, you know, if you take things so seriously that you know them for sure, then it validates you abusing other people with your belief system. And I think, you know, having that, for the lack of a better term, an escape word. You know, it was Kevin Hart who had the word pineapples. When things get a little too difficult, you know, getting a little scared, you have a word to just escape, you know, from it becoming something that it shouldn't. And I think that really is where we get in trouble when in this time where so many people are involved in tribalism, like you said, you know, Black Lives Matter, White Lives Matter, prayer boys, and Antifa, whatever, is that when you get together and you are confirming of very strongly held beliefs, it becomes fact to the group. And that's when that group thing takes over. And whereas individually, maybe you aren't dangerous, maybe you wouldn't end up doing something violent. But in a group, the group mind takes over and the group think takes over. And it starts from just something that you believe very deeply, but it ends up as a war, right? You know, when you have a significant amount of group of people you put together. I know we're running out of time, so I'll go ahead and let you have.
I'm about to go mountain biking.
Where are you going?
I'm just now getting back into mountain biking. So I just rebuilt a 1996 GT Zascar with some disc brakes and stuff like that. So I need to get back in shape to do it in a sense, but at the same time, it's a way. There's a lot of like mountainous desert here nearby that's really pretty, and where we get a lot of rain and going out into the spring and seeing the desert come to life is a magical thing. And we're not that far away from Tijuana and the mountains in that area. It looks very much like Greece, which I spent some time with. So it kind of forces me to get back out there, and I love. Anytime there's anything with a dirt trail or a dirt road with my truck, I'm always like turn to a little kid. But I want to say thank you to a lot of the comments that are on here. I also know that, you know, I'm pretty protective of who I, unapologetically so. I have my own thresholds. I have my own interest in you know, how I deal with things that's unique to me, and I'm unapologetic about it. And at the same time, don't really feel like I need to justify myself. If I'm not comfortable with something, I don't need a reason, and I don't feel the time to go invent a reason. And sometimes I've had, and just recently, I've had some new people that we kind of I had to feel them out, and we developed a rapport, and we've grown from that. And that's just kind of how I operate.
Yeah. You know, in the meantime, I adapt with that. I understand that. I respect that. I just have an inbox for all the Beaufort complaints. So as they come in, they go to the inbox.
You probably, if you get complaints in your inbox from me, that means you're getting more mail than I ever get in my IM, because I never get any IMs.
Yeah. Okay.
At all.
I get way too many. I get, for some reason. Yeah. Oh my God. I literally have people who curse me. How come you don't check my IMs? I send you messages. Da, da, da. For most of it is groups. For some reason, people add me a lot to these group messages and stuff, and they send me stuff, and I appreciate it. So I'm not complaining to anybody. I like it because my day starts off with people sending me things that they find important, and I love that. The problem is it gets in the way of like friendships and relationships sometimes, in terms of, you know, people think, well, if you're not responding to my messages, you know, there's an issue. But I like it because it serves as a filter where people process the news, and I don't want to watch the news. I don't want to watch CNN. I don't want to watch MSNBC. I don't even want to resonate. I don't want that anywhere near my consciousness. And so there's a bunch of beautiful people who are willing to infect their minds with all of that crap. And they'll end up sending me something that's, you know, that they deem is good. But yeah, no, but part of that is Beaufort complaints. So, and the number one Beaufort complaint is, I guess, either Beaufort blocked me or I blocked Beaufort, or I don't know. It goes around that. So, but it looks like it's where it goes. Sometimes people don't resonate with you, you know, and where their mind is, where their life is, their experience they're having for a point in time. And I think that's what block works great at. But then it sounds like it gets alleviated over time sometimes, and then people start to sink together. I think at the end of the day, it really is about letting people have their own experience.
So just someone was mentioning Tijuana with a question mark. I'm like, Otay Mountain Range is outside of San Diego, and it's a huge stretch of BLM land that we can go kind of play, and we can actually go up to the border. It's a really interesting dynamic area. But to your thought though, one of my meditation teachers always had this saying, let go and let God. The people that are meant to be with you, that's part of that enlightenment thing, and life is your ultimate guru. Those things, life doesn't hardly ever give you what you want, but it almost always gives you what your shadow self needs.
Absolutely. Absolutely. This is why I complain about Beaufort a lot. Vernon just said this. I complain about you. I do. Because Beaufort is crazy, Vernon. I tell everybody that twice every single day. Beaufort is crazy as hell. His existence to me is crazy. But in that, he fits in a perfect way that needs to be. And Rebecca's telling the truth. Nope, she never messaged me about Beaufort at all. She just wanted to clarify. I don't think she's ever sent me anything. I think if anything, she's upset because she down in Florida. If y'all don't know Rebecca, this is what I'm telling you about. She's the one. I don't know, how did this start? It started, we were talking about crocodiles or something, and she was just like, I don't care about no crocodiles, y'all weak men, you're cowards, or something like that. And then she posted a picture where like her feet were like over a deck and there was like crocodile swimming.
I think Rebecca should get her own Piggly Wiggly franchise.
What is a Piggly Wiggly franchise?
Piggly Wiggly is like it's a southern 7-Eleven where you can go get Mellow Yellow and Grape Drink.
You mean Piggly Wiggly?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know Piggly Wiggly.
Yeah. I think Rebecca would be a great franchise owner for one in her neighborhood. She doesn't have one.
But she's gonna have like a petting zoo in the back, and they'll have like monkeys and gorillas and lions and
piranhas. Yeah.
I think she got an illegal cat in her house, if I'm not mistaken. I'm getting her in trouble. She has one of these massive cats with vicious teeth. Yeah. Oh, she has. It's not a bobcat, but it reminded me of a bobcat.
Oh, there's gonna be a Rebecca Costello Lion King spinoff. I can see it already.
There has to be. There has to be. She has land down there. They have land, and like she's trying to get people to move down there and live next to them. I'm like, nope. I saw Tiger King. I am not going to live next to Tiger Queen. That's just not going to happen. People go disappearing.
Thank you for having me on again. And I kind of just interjected today. I saw the link and I was like, hey, I drank some coffee. I want to give myself some time before I just head out. And I'm going to just barge in onto your show.
Those are the best conversations. I appreciate it. I think I'm doing one with a sister at 6 p.m. There was a 2:00 slot, but also I was working on my intros and my exit. I'm trying to get a little more professional with what I'm doing. So I was just going to play. And so it was a great conversation. Perfectly timed, perfect resonance, spot on. Thank you for that. Certainly appreciate you taking the time. Drink more coffee. And we'll catch up to you. Don't hurt yourself. I want to get into mountain biking, but the bike is still in the basement. So there are other things I'm trying to work on.
The fun part was rebuilding it and learning how to do that. And I made some mistakes, of course. And then also kind of going from the old archaic V brakes to disc brakes, which is in racing, braking is how you go faster because you can control yourself. So that's one of the big technology advances over the past 20 years. So that's been fun. So that's another part of it is going. I think there's something about there's something, we built this. Let's see what it can do. And what can I do differently and how will that change what it can do kind of thing. And I think that I was into Legos a lot as a kid, right? When I lived overseas. So that's just part of how I operate. It's part of that engineer in me. But hey, thank you everybody. And I appreciate a lot of the comments. I felt a lot of love with it, but thank you.
Yeah, a whole lot. Love you, brother. Thanks. Have a great day now.
Thank you. Bye guys.
Break the chains that bind me, 'cause I wanna break the chains that bind you. Do you wanna set the world free, have perfect harmony? Isn't it time for that? Do you wanna free, boom, 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 free the people? Do you wanna free, boom, 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 free the people from the bottom to the top? Make modern slavery stop. Do you wanna let go of the prisoners? See everyone happy. We can have this and more if we open up the doors. Well, what do you think about that? Do you wanna free, boom, boom, free the people? Do you wanna free, boom, boom, free the people and Mother Nature too? Close down all the zoos. Do you wanna boom, 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 boom? Do you wanna boom, 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 boom? Do you wanna free,